look who joined us in the studio today. Hey everybody, I'm Chelsea with She Sews Seams. You can find me on TikTok, but today you can find me in the Sewing Parts Online studio. I snuck in. And while I was poking around the studio, because I tend to be a little bit nosy, I wanted to get my hands on this Baby Lock Allegro because it just caught my eye and it looked like a really fun machine to try. So I found some scraps naturally and dug through the drawers to find me some supplies. And I thought, hey, let's make a scrunchie while I'm here. So that's what we're gonna do today. To make this, we're gonna start out with just a small piece of quilting cotton. It's a great scrap buster. This piece is cut 5 inches by 22 inches. And all I've done here is folded it right sides together, and then I used Wonder Clips to secure the edge. So the first step of this project is we're simply gonna sew a seam right along the edge. We're gonna start about 1.5 inches down because we need to leave this little piece open at the end to be able to turn it. This Allegro sews so well. It is so much fun to try. If there's one thing I love to do, it's to try new machines. And remember, you want to stop 1.5 inches before the end and do a nice back stitch just to secure those stitches in. So let's cut our thread. We're going to pull the piece out that we just sewed. You can see my stitches only run this part of the length of the fabric. Next, we're going to grab a safety pin and I'm going to attach it right into this middle part of the fabric. See, it's right there. And all we're going to do is start pushing that safety pin through. Now, I like to make my scrunchies a little bit wider, and for this part, that makes this a lot easier. If you're using a very narrow piece of fabric, pushing this through can be a little bit tricky, but not impossible. So let's keep pushing it through, and once we get halfway turned, we're going to stop. So you see how I've pulled this out right here. Time to remove your safety pin, and we're gonna match our right sides of our fabric together and sew these 2 tails closed. This is what's gonna make a circle for us. And you can pin it or put your Wonder Clips on, however you wanna do it. I wouldn't add too many because this is a very small piece to work with. And we're just gonna sew a 1/4 inch seam again right along this short edge. Always make sure you start with a back stitch when you're sewing a seam. Secure it with a back stitch. Clip your threads. Now it's time to turn it out. So we're already halfway there. We're just gonna start pulling that fabric out until we have a circle. Now this is a circle, but it's not a scrunchie. So let's get our elastic and we're gonna string it through. I used 1/4 inch elastic and it's cut 8 inches long. And we're gonna grab a safety pin and secure the end, poke it right through, and all we're gonna do is run it right through the circle. Now, here's the trick. Hold on to this other end of elastic because this is not as long as your circle, and if you keep pushing it through, you're just gonna keep going in circles and lose your safety pin, which is no fun. So I like to just loop it right on my pinky here. That way it's out of the way, but I'm holding on to it. Just gonna work our way through a little bit at a time. Once your safety pin is popping through, go ahead and pull this part down. Now, if you want to, you can secure these ends by crossing them over and doing a zigzag stitch, but because this elastic is so tiny, I'm just gonna tie it in a knot. So if you're new to sewing, this is a great option. It's less stress. You don't have to try and figure out a zigzag stitch just yet, but you will eventually. So we're gonna tie it in this nice knot. You're not gonna feel this in the scrunchie because everything is nice and scrunched together. Okay, it's time for the last step. What we wanna do is turn our seam allowances in so they are inside the scrunchie because we don't wanna see those anymore. And as you do that, match your seams together so everything is nice and neat. And there's 2 different ways that you can secure this at the end. If you're feeling fancy, you can do an invisible hand stitch, which would be coming in through the middle of the 2 pieces and coming up and through, kind of like sewing through the tube, a little bit at a time, in a bit of a zigzag motion. Today, I'm just gonna use a simple edge stitch along the edge. And by that, I mean, we're gonna sew very, very close to that edge of the fabric. There's no real seam allowance associated with this for this project. It's just nice and neat, sew it close to the edge. So as you do this, make sure that you are stacked well with your fabric so that it's nice and even. And once you reach the opening, the end of your opening, you simply just want to sew a little back stitch in and cut your thread. Okay, we're almost done, but we have a little bit of cleanup to do. I've got some little threads that are just sticking out of the edge here. And for this, I like to use my 3.5 inch stork embroidery scissors. These are my favorite scissors in my sewing space. They're always right within my arm's reach because I use them for so many different things, this being just one of them. They get into those little hard to get places. And then there you have it, a perfect little scrunchie, and I think I'm gonna give this one to my daughter.